Plants vs Zombie. Plants vs Zombie is a game that almost everybody knows about. It's one of, if not the best tower defense game ever made, making over $1.5 million. It's truly the magnum opus of PopCap, but the popularity has decreased over the years to the point that you probably don't even know that Plants vs Zombies 3 exists. But what exactly killed Plants vs Zombies? Okay, I see you like to skip a few steps. Well, it's not entirely EA's fault, but for the most part, it was EA's fault. Now, let's take a look back to see what made Plants vs Zombies so popular, so we will have a better understanding why we end up here. In 2009, PopCap released their biggest project so far, Plants vs Zombies. It was a tower defense game, but with something different at the time, that being lanes, and the concept of plants with powers. The game consists of defending your house from zombies that want to eat your brain by using plants with different abilities. Almost every plant is unique and you'll get a new one at almost every level. The game uses different maps, so you'll not get bored playing the same loop. After every 10 level, you'll go into a night version of the previous map, introducing night plants, graves from where more zombies will rise, and the fact that sun will no longer fall from the sky. So you'll have a slower start and the overall level will be a bit more difficult. Then you'll get to the third world, where you have 6 lanes with 2 of them being a pool. In the day you can no longer use your night plants, so you'll have to change between them throughout the game. The fourth world takes place in the same location but again in the night, and instead of graves you have fog, which limits your visibility. And in the fifth world you are on the roof, where you need to use catapults plants and the flower pod in order to place your plants. All these elements combined made a really captivating and unique experience. And the fact that the game has been released on every platform just added more to the popularity and the success of the game. When PopCap released Plants vs Zombies on mobile, the game sold more than 300,000 copies during its first 9 days. It was a massive success, and even to this day people consider it to be a masterpiece, but an event that will forever impact the franchise in a negative way for the most part had happened. In 2011, EA bought PopCap for $750 million. EA is a company known for putting money over quality. Their influence will be most noticeable in the next entry in the franchise. In 2013, PopCap released Plants vs Zombies 2. It's about time. The game introduced a time-traveling theme, with different worlds which take place in different eras of human history, like Ancient Egypt, Jurassic Marsh, Dark Ages, Far Future, and all that stuff. Plants vs Zombies 2 was a very solid sequel. It had everything the first game had and much more. And with each world having their own unique theme, mechanics, and zombies, the experience is most of the time interesting and fresh. It even introduced a new mechanic, plant food, which activates a special power of the plant of your choosing, like sunflower giving more suns, pea shooter firing a lot of peas, or walnut which becomes more thick. At that time it was very exciting to get your hands on a new plant to see what he can do, but much more to see his plant food ability. The game was pretty well received by the fans despite not being finished until 2016. But there was something that was not well received. Plants vs Zombies 2, well, has 2 major problems. The first one is that they took away what made the first game so popular, that being the release on all platforms. This time the game was available only on mobile. Even to this day the game hasn't been released on any other platform. And the second problem was, well, the problem that all mobile games have, especially if they are free. The game is flooded with microtransactions. More than half of the plants are available only if you use your credit card, either by direct paying or buying piñatas where you'll have a chance to get what you want. There are even some levels in almost every world where they will tease you with a paid plant and make that level much easier and suited for that plant to make you buy it. More than that, after every time you complete a level, an ad will pop up. So if you play multiple levels in one sitting, you have to watch an ad like every 5 minutes, which affected the whole experience. This is where people started to notice that something is wrong and how money hungry the game was. For the next project, PopCap assumed a risk and decided to make something different, but still in the Plants vs Zombies universe. So they decided to change the game from a tower defense to a third-person shooter. If you think this was a bad idea, you're completely wrong. In 2014, Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare was released, and it was a massive success. The game sales were as good as the first Plants vs Zombies, and all the fans were crazy about it, and it was very appreciated. In Garden Warfare, you can play as the plants or the zombies, each side having 4 characters with different type of styles, like Champer, who can insta-kill if he attacks you from underground and can shoot goop to stun you, or Sunflower, who can heal allies. The game looks very good and it's pretty addictive, to be honest. There are 2 game modes, a multiplayer and a classic tower defense where waves of zombies will come to damage and destroy your base. Microtransactions were still present, but this time they didn't interfere too much with the experience because you can get a lot of cosmetics and other stuff for free. It was just slower than buying it. With this success, the next step was of course to release a sequel. In 2016, PopCap made Garden Warfare 2. And they applied the same strategy used from Plants vs Zombies 2. They added everything the first game had and much more. New plants, new zombies, new cosmetics and new game modes. Somehow it was more popular than the first one. The game sold around 300,000 copies in just the first week of release. But this is the point where the success of the franchise was at its peak, and from here on things will go only down, slowly but surely. Till in 2016, Plants vs Zombies Heroes was released. PopCap tried again to do a different type of game, but this time they failed, and pretty much no one was interested in it. Earlier, I didn't mention the downside of creating a new type of game in the same universe. Even though Garden Warfare was loved by a lot of people, it still created a new problem. It has split the fandom. On one side you have people who want new content in Plants vs Zombies, the 2D tower defense, and on the other side you have people who want content in Garden Warfare, aka the third person shooter. So now the developers have to manage 2 types of players, and of course this was no easy task. Plants vs Zombies Hero was yet again another mobile exclusive game, and much worse, a card game. I'm not saying worse because it is a bad game, it's around average to below average, it's just okay. I'm saying worse because fans didn't want a new type of game. They wanted new content in the already existed games. So people weren't satisfied and quickly forgot about Pvz Heroes. If they don't give the audience what they want, everyone will just stop caring about the game. And this was of course a big problem. So in the next 3 years, PopCap and EA worked on 2 new projects. The first one was released in September 2019, called Plants vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville. It was another third-person shooter, so people were hyped. But even though they got what they wanted, the game didn't perform too well. At the release there was not too much content. The new focus was on PvE, and the problem with that was the missions were pretty boring. There was not too much cosmetics, and those that existed were not very good. Compared to the other Garden Warfare games, this one was not very popular, and yet again the fans didn't give it too much attention. So now we arrive at our final destination with PopCap, so far. In 2020, Plants vs Zombies 3 was released, and like in the case of Battle for Neighborville, people were hyped to finally get what they wanted, but when they saw the game, all the hype was thrown out the window. The game art style and animation were not that great. They were kinda ugly, if I'm being honest. Not only that, but they changed a lot of pre-existing mechanics like Sunflower. Now Sunflower will be in your hood and recharge automatic suns, depending if they are zombies or how many. Okay, it's a mess, it's a total mess, I'm not even gonna discuss that. And oh boy, people didn't like that, and now the fans started to be very angry and start criticizing the game like a lot. So PopCap decided to close the gates for now and rework the game. So in 2021 the game was available once again. The change in the art style was surely a good thing, but the game still didn't feel like a sequel to the previous 2 games. It felt more like a downgrade and even a bit too similar to the first Plants vs Zombies. So now comes the question. Can Plants vs Zombies and PopCap reputation be saved, and what should PopCap do now? I think they can still make another decent PvZ, but in my honest opinion that's not the solution. I personally think that PopCap should just let Pvz go in the history books as one of the best franchise and move to another game. If you remember, PopCap was known in the 2000s as the company who made a lot of decent games, and with some of them being timeless, like Feeding Frenzy, Zuma and Insecquarium along Plants vs Zombies. They were the king of casual players at the time, and they haven't released a new game in more than 10 years. So I think this is the better option, to make something new. I will be very interested to see what PopCap can do now with how game evolved in the past decade. I mean, I really want to see Feeding Frenzy 3.